Hey guys, so I wanted to make a video for you to go ahead and correct your parallel line review. So questions 1 through 4 is asking us to identify each pair of angles as either corresponding, alternate interior, alternate exterior, same side interior, vertical, or linear pair. So here if we're looking at number 1, X and Y both share a point, right? So they both share this point here. And so these ones here are going to be what we call vertical angles. And if you didn't do your work from 2 weeks ago, that's where all my videos are posted on each kind of angle, so feel free to look at that. Number 2 here, if we're looking at the parallel lines, both of the angles are inside the parallel lines, and then if we're looking at the transversal line here, they're on the opposite side of the transversal, so these here are going to be what we call alternate. Interior angles because they're inside the parallel lines. Okay, so alternate interior. Number 3, the X and the Y are outside of the parallel lines and they're on opposite sides of the transversal, so this is what we call alternate interior. Sorry, not alternate interior, alternate exterior, right? Because they're on the outside of the parallel lines. And then question number 4 here, the lines are right next to each other, and so if we see they create a line, and so this is what we call a linear pair. Okay. All right, so question number 5 and 6 here, it's asking us to A, identify the type of angle, B, what is its property, and then C, find the measure of the indicated angle. So here for number 5, everything, remember, is in reference to our parallel lines. So they're both on top of the parallel lines and they're on the right side. And so this is what we call corresponding angles. And so corresponding angles are congruent. That's the property that they have, therefore meaning they're the same. And so for C, and for us to set it up, we would say that the question mark is going to equal 89 because they're congruent, they're the same. Okay. Number 6 here, they're both inside the parallel lines, and remember the little red markings tell us that the lines are parallel. So that's our whole unit is based on lines being parallel, right, and cut by a transversal. So here they're both inside the parallel lines, they're both on the left side of the transversal, and so this is what we call same side interior. And so we know that same side interior angles are going to be supplementary. And so remember, supplementary means that they add up to 180 degrees. And so here our setup is going to be that our question mark plus the 64 is going to equal 180 degrees. If we want to solve for the question mark, we're going to have to get or do the inverse operation to the 64. So subtract 64 from both sides. And so here 180 minus the 64 is going to equal 116 degrees. All right, number 7 here, the angles are outside of the parallel line, so they're exterior and they're on alternate sides. So this here is what we call alternate exterior. If I know how to spell, so alternate exterior. And then, so the property of alternate exterior is that they are congruent. And so because they're congruent, we know to set them equal to each other. So the question mark is going to equal 28 degrees. Okay. Number 8 here, once again, they're going to touch at one point. And so here, this is what we call vertical angles. Okay. The property of vertical angles is that they are also congruent. And therefore, the setup for this is the question mark is equal to 126 degrees. All right, number 9 is asking us to solve for x by identifying the type of angle and using its property to find x. And so here, if we're looking at them, they're both outside of the parallel lines and they're on opposite sides. Therefore, this is what we're going to call alternate exterior. So it's really important that you know the difference between your types of angles and their properties, because that's going to help the setup. So we know that alternate exterior angles are what we say are congruent, and so therefore the setup here is going to be that they're going to be equal to each other. So the 24x plus 2 is going to equal the 25x. So here we want to get the x's on the same side, so I'm going to do inverse operation, subtract 24x from both sides. It's going to cancel, leaves us with 2 is equal to x. And so we're done solving for x there. All right, so for 10 and 11, same thing, we're just solving for x. And so if we look at number 10 here, if we're looking in correspondence to the parallel lines, the angles are both on top and they're both on the left side. So this is what we call corresponding angles. And therefore, we want to remember that corresponding angles are congruent. And so if we're trying to solve for x, we would go ahead and set them equal to each other. So we have 80 is equal to x. Plus 87, we want to get x by itself, so do the inverse operation. Whatever we do to one side, we want to do to the other side. And so here we have x is equal to -7. And so remember, x here is not the angle, but rather it's just the variable. And so this -7 does not have degrees. And so it's okay that it's negative because it's not the measure of the angle itself. All right, if we're looking at number 11 here, so the angles are directly across from each other. They only touch at one point. And so here, this is what we call vertical angles. And so if we recall, the property of vertical angles is that they are also congruent, and therefore, so we would just set these two angles equal to each other to be able to solve for x. So we have 133 is equal to 22x plus 1. We want to get x by itself, so we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. So we're left with 132 is equal to 22x. And so here, if we want to get x by itself, we would go ahead and divide by 22. And I'm going to grab a calculator really quick because I can't do that one in my head. So we have 132 divided by 22. And so here, that leaves us with x is equal to 6. All right, so 12, 13, and 14 is same thing. We're just going to go ahead and we have to identify the types of angles that they are first. So here, number 12 is also going to be vertical angles. So a key important thing here is that that box means that it's a right angle, meaning that it's 90 degrees. Okay, so these ones I'm just going to set up so that you guys can go back and do them for you. So these are vertical angles. Because they're vertical angles, we're just going to go ahead and set it up. So we have x plus 93 is equal to 90. Okay, number 13 here, they're both inside the parallel lines. They're on the same side. So this is what we call same side interior or consecutive interior angles. And so here, these ones are actually supplementary. So if we want to be able to solve for x, we would add them and set them equal to 180. So we would have 13x plus 3 and then minus 3 plus 32x. And I ran out of room, so I'm going to put equals the 180 over here on this side. And so same thing, combine like terms, and that way we could solve for x. And then number 14 is exactly the same. If you see, they're both inside the parallel lines. They're both on the same side. So this is what we once again call same side interior or consecutive interior angles. So they're going to add up to 180 degrees. So it'd be 11x plus 1 plus our 9x minus 1 is equal to 180 degrees. So I have this set up here. You would have to go back and actually solve for x. I just don't want to give you guys all the answers. So number 15 and 16, it's asking us to find the measure of the angle that's indicated in bold. So same thing, you have to identify what kind of angles, know the property to know the correct setup. So 15, if we remember, these are what we call vertical angles. We know that vertical angles are congruent. So we're going to have 9x plus 6 is equal to 11x minus 6. Okay, we want to get x's on the same side, so I'm going to subtract the 9x. So we're left with 6 is equal to 2x minus 6. I want to get the x by itself, add 6 to both sides. So I would get 12x, sorry, not 12x, just 12 is equal to 2x. Divide by 2, and x is equal to 6. But remember, the question is not asking us to solve for x, but rather find the angle that's indicated in bold. So here for number 15, our bold is going to be the 11x minus 6. So we're going to go ahead and plug it in there. So we have 11x minus 6. We know that x is equal to 6, and so that's what we're going to plug in. So we have 11 times 6 minus 6. 11 times 6 leaves us with 66. And if we subtract 6, we're going to get 60. And so remember, this is the measure of an angle. Therefore, it will be in degrees. And so our answer here would be 60 degrees. Okay. Number 16 here, they're alternate exterior angles. So therefore, we would set them equal to each other. So it would be 6x plus 4 is equal to 7x minus 7. Okay, and then same thing, solve for x, and then plug it back in. All right, number 17 and 18, same thing. I'll set them up for you guys, but I want you guys to show me the work. So here we have, they're both inside, so we know they're interior. They're on the opposite side. So number 17, we have alternate interior angles. We know that the property of alternate interior are going to be that they're congruent. Therefore, we would simply set them equal to each other. So it would be 19x plus 11 is equal to the 20x plus 5. Solve for x and then plug it back in. And so remember, the one you're plugging it into would be the 20x plus 5. Number 18 here, we have, they're on the same side. They're both inside the parallel line. So we have same side interior, which means the property here is going to be that they are supplementary. And so in order for us to set these up, we add them. So it would be x plus 97 plus x plus 97. And that's going to equal the 180. Combine like terms, get the x by itself, solve for x. Once you have x, then you're going to go ahead and plug it in to x plus 97. All right, and same thing for number 19 and 20, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and identify the kind of angles they are. So here for number 19, we have what are our linear pair, and so remember, linear pair are also supplementary, so we're going to add them and set them equal to 180 degrees. So we have 9x plus 3 plus the 13x plus 1, and that's equal to the 180. Combine like terms, solve for x, and then plug it back in, and then the angle you're going to plug it into is the 9x plus 3, since that's the one that's in bold. Number 20, if we're looking at those, remember they touch at one point. They're, I would say, what I call directly across from each other. So I would call these vertical angles. Remember that vertical angles are congruent. And therefore, if we're going to be setting that up, we're going to set the angles equal to each other. So 5x plus 13x is equal to 11x plus 7. So same thing, we want the x's on the same side, okay? Solve for x. Once you solve for x, you're going to plug it back in, and so here you would be plugging it into the negative 5 plus 13x. All right, guys, so if you have any other questions, feel free to message me. You guys know how to reach me. Have a good day and good luck on your group test.